The corporate psychopath, Martin Shkreli. Martin Shkreli was born on March 17, 1983, in Brooklyn, New York. The son of Albanian immigrant genocide. Young Martin demonstrated exceptional intelligence, but also early signs of grandiosity and manipulation. By age 19, he was already drawing SEC investigation while interning at a hedge fund for suspected market manipulation. Between 2009 and 2015, Shkreli orchestrated securities fraud across multiple hedge funds. He ran a Ponzi-like scheme, using assets from one company, retrofit, to pay off defrauded investors from his failed hedge funds MSMB Capital and MSMB Healthcare. He lied to investors about fund performance, claiming 35% returns when funds were actually losing money. This scheme cost Retrofin shareholders over $10 million, but his most notorious act came in September 2015. His company, Torrent Pharmaceuticals, acquired Daraprim, a critical HIV and AIDS medication. Overnight, he raised its price from $13.50 to $750 per pill, a 5,556% increase. Patients requiring life-saving treatment were suddenly facing financial ruin or death. A quartered psychological evaluation revealed narcissistic personality traits, faulty judgment, sense of entitlement, and a preoccupation with thoughts of success. When asked about dying patients, Shkreli showed no remorse. He bragged on social media. He taunted critics. He saw himself as smarter than everyone else. Convicted in August 2017 on securities fraud charges, Shkreli was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment with $7.4 million forfeiture. In January 2022, he received an additional $64.6 million disgorgement, upheld on appeal, and a lifetime ban from the pharmaceutical industry. Released in May 2022, after serving approximately 4 years, he remains barred from serving as an officer of any publicly traded company. But the patients he hurt, they'll never recover what they lost. The violent predator, Israel Keyes. Israel Keyes was born on January 7, 1978, in rural Washington state. He grew up in a one-room cabin without electricity. His family attended Christian identity churches with white supremacist ideology. His neighbor would later be convicted of a triple murder. This was the world that shaped him. Early warning signs emerged by age 14. Keyes acknowledged his thoughts were not normal. He tortured animals, shooting a cat tied to a tree, allegedly skinning a deer alive. He broke into neighbors' homes to steal firearms. Despite these behaviors, he served in the U.S. Army from 1998 to 2001 and received an honorable discharge at the rank of specialist. He built a successful construction business in Alaska. Nobody suspected a thing, but Keyes had been planning for years. He buried what he called murder kits across the country: weapons, cash, zip ties, chemicals. He buried them years before using them. This eliminated forensic connections between himself and his crimes. He studied Ted Bundy's methods. He preferred strangulation because he enjoyed watching victims lose consciousness. And he deliberately chose victims at random to avoid detection. Patterns. His confirmed victims include Bill and Lorraine Carrier of Essex. Vermont murdered June 8, 2011. He broke into their home, incapacitated them, drove them to an abandoned farmhouse, sexually assaulted Lorraine, then strangled them. Both their bodies have never been found. In February 2012, he kidnapped 18-year-old Samantha Koenig from a coffee stand in Anchorage, Alaska. He kept her body in a shed for 2 weeks, then sewed her eyes open, applied makeup, and posed her with a newspaper to fake proof of life for ransom. He dismembered her body and disposed of it in a frozen lake. Arrested on March 13, 2012, after police traced ATM withdrawals from Koenig's debit card, Keyes confessed to at least 11 murders across multiple states. On December 1, 2012, before revealing the locations of other victims, he committed suicide in his Anchorage jail cell using a razor blade and bedsheet noose. He left an ode to murder that revealed nothing about additional victims. Their families will never have closure. The intimate partner psychopath, Drew Peterson. Drew Peterson was born on January 5, 1954, in Bolingbrook, Illinois. He served as a Bolingbrook police sergeant for 30 years while systematically terrorizing for successive wives. His pattern escalated from infidelity to documented domestic violence to murder. Peterson's second wife, Victoria Connolly, alleged a decade of domestic violence during their 1982 to 1992 marriage. Peterson threatened he knew how to kill her and make it look like an accident. His third wife, Kathleen Savio, generated 18 domestic disturbance calls to police between 2002 and 2004. She obtained a protection order against him. She told friends she feared for her life. On March 1, 2004, Kathleen Savio was found dead in a dry bathtub with a gash to her head. Initially, A coroner's jury ruled it accidental drowning. That jury included a police officer who knew Peterson personally. No one questioned how someone drowns in a dry tub. Peterson's fourth wife, Stacey Ann Cales Peterson, was just 17 when Peterson, then 49, began dating her. They married October 18, 2003. Just 8 days after his divorce from Savio, Stacey disappeared. On October 28, 2007, at age 23, her body has never been recovered. Peterson claimed she left him for another man, but Stacey's disappearance prompted re-examination of Savio's death. A second autopsy revealed extensive bruising consistent with a violent struggle and forced drowning. Illinois subsequently passed Drew's law permitting hearsay testimony. When a witness has been killed to prevent testimony, convicted in September 2012 of Savio's murder, Peterson received 38 years. In 2016, he received an additional 40 years for attempting to hire a hitman from prison to kill the prosecutor. That's a total of 78 years imprisonment. He remains incarcerated at Indiana State Prison. Stacey Peterson's body has never been found. Her family will never have the closure of a proper burial. The community pillar psychopath, Dennis Hastert, John Dennis Hastert, was born on January 2, 1942, in Aurora, Illinois. He served as Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives from 1999 to 2007, the longest-serving Republican Speaker in American history, a powerful political figure, a man trusted by millions. And he was hiding something dark. From 1965 to 1981, Hastert taught at Yorkville High School while sexually abusing at least 5 male students aged 14 to 17. His methods included inappropriate medical massages in the locker room, abuse during overnight wrestling trips, and deliberate positioning. He placed a recliner chair in direct view of shower stalls, where he watched boys shower. Hastert built his political career on evangelical Christian family values. He received perfect scores from the National Right to Life Committee and Christian Coalition. He publicly advocated for legislation to put repeat child molesters in jail for the rest of their lives. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. The abuse remained hidden for over 40 years, until 2010, when one victim confronted him. Hastert agreed to pay $3.5 million in hush money. Federal investigators discovered Hastert was structuring bank withdrawals under $10,000 to evade reporting requirements. When questioned by the FBI, he falsely claimed he was being extorted, unable to prosecute the underlying abuse due to statute of limitations. Prosecutors charged him with financial crimes. At his April 2016 sentencing, victim Scott Cross testified in detail about being molested as a 17-year-old team captain. Judge Thomas Durkin called Hastert a serial child molester and sentenced him to 15 months in federal prison. Hastert served approximately 13 months and was released in July 2017. After his release, he claimed his courtroom admissions of abuse were crafted by his attorneys and he disagreed with them. No remorse, no accountability, just lies, even after conviction. The passive-aggressive psychopath Michelle Carter was born on August 11, 1996, in Massachusetts. Her case established legal precedent for holding someone criminally responsible for using words alone to cause death. Carter conducted a primarily text-based relationship with Conrad Henry Roy III, a Marine salvage captain's son struggling with social anxiety and depression. Though living only 35 miles apart, they met in person only a handful of times over 2 years. Initially, Carter discouraged Roy's suicidal thoughts, encouraging professional help. But her attitude shifted in July 2014. She began viewing his death as a good thing to help him. Text messages from Carter to Roy included, "You keep pushing it off and say you'll do it, but you never do. You just need to do it. If you want it as bad as you say you do, it's time to do it today." On July 12, 2014, Roy filled his truck with carbon monoxide in a Kmart parking lot in Fairhaven, Massachusetts. During a phone call, Roy expressed fear and got out of the truck. Carter told him to get back in. She then listened on the phone as he died without calling for help. She texted his family, pretending not to know his whereabouts. 2 months later, she texted a classmate, "I could have stopped him." Judge Lawrence Menas found Carter guilty of involuntary manslaughter in June 2017. He ruled that Roy had broken the chain of self-causation when he exited the vehicle, and Carter's wanton and reckless encouragement caused his death. She was sentenced to 2.5 years, with 15 months served. Released after serving approximately 12 months from February 2019 to January 23, 2020, earning about 3 months of good time credit. Carter's probation ended August 1, 2022. Conrad Roy was 18 years old when he died. His family will never see him graduate college, get married, or have children, and Michelle Carter walked free after less than a year. The puppet master Keith Allen Raniere was born on August 26, 1960 in Brooklyn, New York. He built a multi-level marketing empire that served as cover for a sex trafficking operation, ultimately controlling an estimated 6 members and accumulating over $150 million. Raniere's predation began early. At age 24, he seduced 15-year-old Gina Melita, who introduced him to 14-year-old Gina Hutchison, whom he also abused. Hutchinson was found dead of apparent suicide in October 2002, at age 33, after his first company was investigated as a pyramid scheme in 20 states. Raniere founded NXIVM in 1998, offering personal development seminars costing up to $7,500 per session, but the organization's darkest element was DOS, a secret society of approximately 150 women. Members were required to provide collateral, including explicit photographs and damaging personal information that could be used as blackmail. Women underwent branding ceremonies where Raniere's initials were burned into flesh near their pelvis while being held down. The sessions were filmed as additional leverage. One victim, Camila, was sexually abused beginning at age 15, maintained in a 12-year relationship that caused eating disorders, self-harm, and suicide attempts. Her sister Daniela was confined to a room for 2 years after expressing interest in another man. Arrested in March 2018 at a Porto Vallarta luxury villa, found hiding in a walk-in closet, Raniere was convicted in June 2019 on all charges, including sex trafficking, racketeering, and sexual exploitation of a child. He was sentenced to 120 years imprisonment. He is currently incarcerated at USP Tucson, a maximum security facility for sex offenders. He will die in prison. The hybrid psychopath, Dennis Lynn Rader, was born on March 9, 1945, in Pittsburgh, Kansas. For 31 years, he maintained parallel lives. Devoted family man, church council president, Cub Scout leader, and city compliance officer by day. Serial killer who murdered 10 people by night. Rader's sadistic fantasies emerged in childhood. He tortured and killed small animals, engaged in voyeurism, and practiced autoerotic asphyxiation. He served in the U.S. Air Force, married Paula Dietz in 1971, fathered 2 children, and worked installing home security alarms. Ironically, for homeowners afraid of BTK. His first murders came on January 15, 1974. He killed the entire Otero family, Joseph Sr., Julie 9-year-old Joey, and 11-year-old Josephine. He bound and suffocated the parents and son, then hanged Josephine in the basement while masturbating as she died. Over the following 17 years, he killed 6 more victims. Rader's Gnosticism ultimately betrayed him. After a Wichita Eagle article noted the 30th anniversary of the unsolved case, he resumed taunting communications with police. He asked if a floppy disk could be traced. Police replied via classified ad that it would be safe. On February 16, 2005, Rader sent a purple floppy disk. Metadata in a deleted Word document titled Test VSC.doc revealed Christ Lutheran Church, and author Dennis Bowies obtained a warrant for a pap smear from Rader's daughter. DNA showed a familial matched semen from the 1974 crime scene. Arrested February 25, 2005. Rader pleaded guilty to all 10 murders. He received 10 consecutive life sentences with a minimum of 175 years. He remains in solitary confinement at El Dorado Correctional Facility, now 80 years old and, according to his daughter, rotting in a wheelchair. The career criminal Kenneth Allen McDuff, was born on March 21, 1946. He demonstrated catastrophic failures in the Texas criminal justice system, killing at least 9 people across a criminal career spanning 32 years, including multiple murders committed after being released on parole from death row. On August 6, 1966, McDuff and accomplice Roy Dale Green abducted 3 teenagers near Fort Worth. He shot 17-year-old Robert Brand and 15-year-old Mark Dunham in a car trunk, then raped 16-year-old Edna Louise Sullivan before strangling her to death with a broomstick. Sentenced to death 3 times. His sentences were commuted to life following the 1972 Supreme Court ruling. Despite offering a $10,000 bribe to a parole board member, McDuff was paroled on October 11, 1989, as one of 20 former death row inmates released due to prison overcrowding. Within 3 days, he is suspected of murdering 29-year-old Serafia Parker after a brief return to prison for a parole violation. He was paroled again in December 1990. Over the next 15 months, McDuff murdered at least 5 more women, including 22-year-old Melissa Northrup, who was pregnant. He was executed by lethal injection on November 17, 1998. The case prompted comprehensive reform. Texas expanded prison capacity from 38,000 to 140,000 beds and reformed parole eligibility for violent offenders. Before McDuff, violent offenders could be released after serving just 1/3 of their sentence. Now, many must serve at least 50% or 30 calendar years. These reforms became known as the McDuff Laws. The online predator John Edward Robinson John Edward Robinson Sr. was born on December 27, 1943 in Cicero, Illinois. He earned the distinction of being America's first known internet serial killer, using early online chat rooms to lure victims before murdering them. Robinson's transition to murder began in 1984. Over 16 years, he killed at least 8 women. His most brazen crime involved 19-year-old Lisa Stassi and her 4-month-old daughter Tiffany. Robinson murdered Lisa and sold baby Tiffany to his brother for $5,500 through a fake adoption. The child did not learn her true identity until age 15. Robinson used the online handle Slavemaster to troll BDSM chat rooms on early internet services like CompuServe and AOL. He had victims sign blank stationery before killing them, then typed letters to families pretending the women were alive while cashing their checks for years. He stored bodies in 85-pound chemical drums. His downfall came in 2000 when 2 women filed complaints, giving police probable cause for search warrants. Investigators found 5 bodies in chemical drums, 2 human skulls, 334 Polaroid photographs of victims during torture, and detailed torture logs. Convicted in Kansas and Missouri, Robinson received 2 death sentences and 5 life sentences. He remains on death row at El Dorado Correctional Facility at age 81. The medical professional psychopath, Christopher Duntrist, for Daniel Duntrist, was born on April 3, 1971, in Montana. He became the first physician in American history convicted on criminal charges for actions committed during surgery. Over approximately 2 years in Dallas area hospitals, he maimed 33 patients and killed 2. Dunch's resume appeared impressive. An MD PhD from the University of Tennessee, neurosurgery residency, spine fellowship. The reality was catastrophic incompetence concealed by institutional failures. At Baylor Plano, Dunch left a trail of devastation. Kenneth Fennell was paralyzed. Barry Morgulov was left wheelchair-bound. Jerry Summers, a longtime friend, was rendered quadriplegic. Summers would die in 2021 from complications related to the paralysis Dunch caused, though Dunch was never charged with his death. Kelly Martin came in for routine surgery in April 2012. Dunch cut through her spinal cord and severed an artery. She bled to death. Fellow surgeon Mark Hoyle physically restrained Dunch during one surgery and told him he was dangerous. Surgeons Randall Kirby and Robert Henderson performed salvage surgeries on multiple victims and ultimately convinced the DA to prosecute. Convicted in February 2017, Dunch was sentenced to life in prison. Prosecutors used the injury to an elderly person statute, targeting the victim's age and vulnerability, to secure a life sentence rather than typical medical malpractice charges. He is incarcerated at OB Ellis Unit, Huntsville, Texas, and will be eligible for parole in July 2045 at age 74. The family annihilator, John Listjohn, Emil List, was born on September 17, 1925. He murdered his entire family on November 9, 1971, then vanished for 18 years. List embodied the controlled, meticulous family annihilator. Raised in a strict Lutheran household, he developed an obsessive personality characterized by rigid religious beliefs and profound shame about failure. When List lost his job in 1971, he could not admit failure. For months, he spent days at the train station pretending to commute. On November 9, 1971, List executed his plan. He shot his wife Helen in the back of the head, then went upstairs and shot his 84-year-old mother, Alma. After making himself lunch, he shot daughter Patricia and son Frederick as they returned from school. Then he drove to watch his son John Jr. play in a soccer game before taking him home and shooting him multiple times. List placed the bodies in the mansion's ballroom, cut his face from all family photographs, lowered the thermostat, tuned the radio to a religious station, and wrote a 5-page confession letter explaining he killed them to save their souls. List assumed a new identity, relocated to Denver, and remarried in 1985. His capture came after forensic sculptor Frank Bender created an age-progressed clay bust for America's Most Wanted in May 1989. A Denver neighbor recognized him. Convicted in April 1990, List received 5 consecutive life sentences. He died in prison on March 21, 2008. Having told interviewers he expected to be reunited with his family in heaven. The sadistic psychopath, David Parker. Ray David Parker Ray was born on November 6, 1939, in Bella, New Mexico. known as the toy box killer. He kept victims captive in a custom-built torture chamber, soundproofed trailer filled with surgical instruments, whips, chains, and pulleys. Ray's childhood was marked by severe abuse and neglect. His alcoholic mother abandoned the family. He was raised by his grandfather, who exposed him to disturbing sexual materials at a young age. By adolescence, Ray was torturing animals and developing elaborate torture fantasies. In 1993, Ray retired from his job as a mechanic and converted a cargo trailer into what he called his toy box. The trailer contained gynecological equipment, electroshock devices, and video recording equipment. He soundproofed the walls and installed restraint systems on a custom table. Ray would kidnap women, usually drug them, then transport them to his property. Upon waking, victims would hear an audio tape describing in graphic detail what would happen to them. The tape lasted approximately 30 minutes. Then the torture would begin. Sessions lasted days or weeks. Ray's accomplice and girlfriend, Cindy Hindi, helped lure victims. His daughter, Glenda Jean Ray, also participated in some abductions. In March 1999, Cynthia Vigil escaped after 3 days of captivity. She convinced Hindi to unchain her hands, then grabbed an ice pick and stabbed her repeatedly before running naked down the street with a metal collar still around her neck. Police found extensive evidence including the audio tape, restraint devices, and journals detailing victims. Ray claimed to have kidnapped and tortured approximately 40 women over 30 years. While he is suspected of killing up to 60 people, no bodies were ever found. Most victims were never identified because he administered drugs that caused amnesia. Convicted in 2001, Ray was sentenced to 224 years in prison, specifically for the kidnapping and torture of Cynthia Vigil and Kelly Garrett. Not for murder. He died of a heart attack on May 28, 2002, just days after his sentencing. He never revealed the locations of bodies or identified most victims. The con artist psychopath Anna Sorokin was born on January 23, 1991 in Russia. Known as Anna Delvey, she created an elaborate false identity as a German heiress, worth $60 million to defraud banks, hotels, and acquaintances. Born to working-class parents, Sorokin relocated to Germany at age 16. She became obsessed with fashion blogs and social media. She emerged in New York's social scene, claiming a trust fund and proposing the Anna Delvey Foundation, a private members club. Sorokin's techniques combined confidence with forgery. She created fake bank statements, forged wire transfer confirmations, and invented fictional business managers. She tipped lavishly to cultivate loyalty among hotel staff. Her victim, Rachel DeLoach Williams, was defrauded of $62,000 when Sorokin invited her on a Morocco trip, then claimed credit card problems. Sorokin deposited $160,000 in fraudulent checks, withdrew $70,000, and booked a $35,390 private jet. Convicted in April 2019, she was sentenced to 4 to 12 years in prison. Released in February 2021, she was immediately taken into ICE custody for overstaying her visa. She received $320,000 from Netflix for her life rights. Due to New York's Son of Sam law, a significant portion was used for victim restitution and legal fees. As of 2025, she remains under house arrest while fighting deportation, participating in Dancing with the Stars while wearing her ankle monitor and hosting a podcast. The political psychopath, Ratko Mladic, was born on March 12, 1942, in what is now Bosnia and Herzegovina. As commander of the Bosnian Serb army during the Bosnian War, he orchestrated the genocide of over 8,000 Bosniak men and boys in Srebrenica in July 1995. Mladic's military career began in the Yugoslav People's Army. When Yugoslavia dissolved in the early 1990s, he became chief of staff of the Bosnian Serb army. He implemented a campaign of ethnic cleansing targeting Bosniak Muslims and Croatian civilians. In July 1995, Mladic's forces overran the UN-designated safe area of Srebrenica. Over 5 days, his troops systematically separated men and boys from women and children. The males were transported to execution sites in trucks. Mass graves contained thousands of bodies, many with hands bound and blindfolds in place. Mladic went into hiding after the war ended. He was finally arrested on May 26, 2011, in Serbia after 16 years as a fugitive. His trial at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia began in May 2012. On November 22, 2017, Mladic was convicted of genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. He remains in custody in The Hague under international supervision. He has shown no remorse for the massacres he ordered. The everyday psychopath. Melanie McGuire was born on October 8, 1972. She was a nurse living in New Jersey who murdered her husband, dismembered his body, and disposed of the pieces in 3 suitcases that washed ashore along the Chesapeake Bay. McGuire's husband, William Bill McGuire, worked as a computer programmer. Their marriage appeared stable from the outside, but Melanie was having an affair with a doctor at the fertility clinic where she worked. When Bill discovered the affair in April 2004, she decided to eliminate him. On April 28, 2004, Melanie shot Bill twice in the head while he slept. But first, she drugged him with chloral hydrate, a sedative. This nurse-specific knowledge became a key part of the prosecution's case. She then purchased a handgun matching the murder weapon days earlier. After killing him, she dismembered his body in their apartment bathtub using a power saw. She packed the body parts into 3 matching Kenneth Cole suitcases she'd purchased at a local store. Melanie drove to the Chesapeake Bay and threw the suitcases off a bridge. The first suitcase containing Bill's legs washed ashore on May 5, 2004. The second suitcase with his head and torso washed up days later. The third suitcase containing his arms was recovered on May 16, 2004. Roughly 35 miles away from the initial find, all 3 matching Kenneth Cole suitcases were found. Police traced the suitcases to the store where Melanie purchased them. Security footage showed her making the purchase. Computer forensics revealed she'd searched for undetectable poisons and gun laws on her laptop. Cell phone records placed her at the bridge when the suitcases were dumped. Convicted in April 2007 of murder, Melanie McGuire was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. She continues to maintain her innocence and has exhausted all appeals. She remains incarcerated at Edna Mahon Correctional Facility for Women in New Jersey. They all share one thing: they saw other people not as humans, but as objects, tools, obstacles, toys, and they destroyed lives without remorse. The most terrifying truth: they lived among us, they smiled at us, they shook our hands, and we never suspected a thing until it was too late.